Hi everyone, I am Kaylee from Washington. If you look at me right now, you might think I am just an ordinary boy because of how I dress, but deep down, I am actually the girliest girl you could ever meet. I just love everything that is pink, cute, and sweet. Before I share the rest of my story with you, please take a moment to hit the like button and subscribe to follow along. Looking back at my oldest memories, I remember being a tiny baby lying peacefully in my warm crib. I was born with shiny blonde hair and bright blue eyes, which were an exact match to my mom's beautiful features. I never had a dad around, nor did I ever meet him, but honestly, it was never a big deal to me because I had all the love I needed. When I turned 10, we were living in a completely normal, modest house. I quickly realized that you do not need to live in some giant fancy castle just to feel like a real princess. In my mom's eyes, I was already royal. She absolutely adored pampering me and surrounded me with the cutest things in the world. My bedroom was a magical space, filled to the brim with pretty dresses, sparkly shoes, and Alice bands in every color of the rainbow. I remember sitting happily on my bed, hugging my favorite teddy bear while soaking in the sweet scent of fresh laundry. My mom would sit behind me, gently brushing through my long hair with a soft comb. She would smile warmly at me and say that my beautiful hair could easily give Rapunzel a run for her money. Those moments made me feel incredibly safe and loved. Tragically, everything changed when I was 10. My mom passed away in a terrible accident, leaving me heartbroken. The only person left beside me was Selena, a close friend of my mom. She wore a plain maid outfit and gently pulled me away from the funeral, leading me into a completely new life. I had to move in with her, and she lived in a massive castle-like mansion. As we walked through the grand entrance, 2 rows of maids stood in the hall. The moment they saw me, they started gasping and whispering in admiration. Feeling overwhelmed, I tightly squeezed Selena's hand. One maid remarked that I looked like a porcelain doll and would win any beauty pageant. Another said I was too lovely to be real. But then a third maid urgently whispered for them to quiet down, warning that Mrs. Sanchez did not like anyone who was prettier than her own daughter. A fourth maid murmured that the woman had been in a foul mood ever since her husband left for his mistress. I only caught a small part of their hushed conversation before Selena abruptly dragged me into a quiet corner, looking at me with a serious expression. Selena told me that I had heard them. She warned me that boys were bad news, telling me to look at my own dad as an example, and strictly ordered me to stay away from them. I rubbed my head in utter confusion. Selena leaned in closer, adopting a mysterious tone, and told me that the only way to repel boys was to look just like them. Before I could process her words, my life was turned upside down. She forced me to wear brown contact lenses to hide my blue eyes. My heart pounded in panic as she cut off my long, beautiful hair. I watched in tears as she threw my entire dress collection into the trash bin. In their place, she bought me oversized boy clothes that practically drowned my frame, filling me with disgust. Just like that, I looked exactly like a teenage boy. Selena stood back, looking satisfied and proud. I tried my best to stand there pretending to be fine, but internally, I was absolutely screaming. One day, I was completely alone in the kitchen when a loud, demanding voice echoed from the living room. Sanchez was shouting for someone to bring her 2 smoothies immediately. I quickly prepared 2 avocado shakes and carried them out on a tray. My hands were trembling slightly, and as I approached the couch where Mrs. Sanchez and her daughter sat, I lost my grip. One of the thick green shakes went flying, splashing right all over the daughter's face and instantly turning her into a green creature. Mrs. Sanchez jumped up, completely furious and looking ready to chew my head off. She screamed at me to watch what I was doing, yelling that her daughter's angel face was destined to be Miss USA and demanding how I dared to be so careless. I stood there shaking, tightly holding the empty tray, and nervously mumbled that I was deeply sorry. Surprisingly, the girl herself was not angry at all. She picked up a small mirror with one hand, gently tapping the green cream on her face as if doing a skincare routine, and told her mom to relax because avocado face masks were all the rage anyway. Even though the daughter was calm, I sadly still had to face my punishment for the mess. But as I stood in the hallway waiting, the girl suddenly walked over to me. She introduced herself as Beatrix with a bright smile and invited me to go and play. I hesitated, trying to explain my situation, but she cut me off cheerfully, telling me not to worry because she was there and her mom would not punish me anymore. She then led me to her room and opened the door. My eyes went wide in amaze. Her room was a pink paradise, so full of beautiful girly items that it looked like a fancy castle inside. I was completely dazzled by everything. Beatrix excitedly put various colorful wigs and makeup on me. As I looked at my new reflection in the mirror dressing table, a wave of familiar perfume scents and memories of my mom came rushing back. The moment Beatrix got distracted by a tube of lipstick, I quickly pulled out a small, creased photo of my mom from my pocket, which I carried with me everywhere. Tears welled up in my eyes as I looked at the photo and then at the mirror, realizing just how much we looked alike. I was just about to take out my dull brown contact lenses when Selena suddenly stormed into the room. She looked furious as she grabbed my arm and dragged me straight back to our small room. Once the door closed, Selena angrily scolded me me, telling me never to let her catch me in that room again. She strictly ordered me to keep my distance from the little mistress, sternly reminding me that we were not from the same world as people like them. But little did Selena know, Beatrix had already run off to ask her mom to allow me to go to school with her. When I found out, I could not help but smile triumphantly while Beatrix celebrated cheerfully. 6 years flew by, and at 16, Beatrix and I were completely inseparable. I mean, literally. She clung to my arm wherever we went, from the living room to the kitchen, and from the mansion all the way to school. I usually tried to act completely unconcerned, but honestly, the only place I could ever find a single moment of peace was inside the restroom. One day, I walked in and closed the door, thinking I was finally alone, only to turn around and see Beatrix standing there with a joyful grin. So much for privacy. Every time we hung out at the mall, it was pure torture for me. Whenever I saw a display of gorgeous new dresses, my mouth would practically water, and I had to force myself to look away. In the makeup section, my hands would instinctively reach out for the pretty lipsticks and blushes, forcing me to literally slap my own hands to stop myself. They ended up so swollen and sore that I seriously contemplated gluing them inside my pockets next time. Beatrix just stood there, her jaw dropping in utter confusion at my battered hands while I put on a defeated face. Then came a day at school when I received the absolute worst news of my life. I walked into the classroom, and our female teacher casually informed me that one of the girl rugby players had been injured, so she had placed me on the team. I was completely shocked and internally panicked because I did not even know the first thing about rugby. Before I could object, the teacher introduced a boy standing nearby named Austin, telling me he was the rugby coach and the guy to go to if I needed anything. Austin just stood there looking at me with a freezing cold expression. Turning to Beatrix, who was tightly clinging to my shoulder as usual, I quietly asked if she knew him. Beatrix leaned in close and whispered in a mysterious, warning tone. She admitted he was handsome, but warned that something about him screamed bad news. As I looked back at Austin, the hallway suddenly felt darker and deeply intimidating. Beatrix added that everyone called him Awful Austin and warned me that I had better watch out, leaving me shivering with nervousness. Beatrix was not exaggerating at all. On my very first day on the rugby pitch, Austin pushed me so hard during training that I felt dizzy and almost passed out. During the agility ladder exercises, my feet got completely tangled in the lines, and I went crashing to the ground. Looking up, I saw Austin walking toward me and quickly stretched out my hand, thinking he was going to help me up. Instead, he just gave me a completely soulless blank look and walked right past me. Another time, I completely missed a pass, and the heavy ball flew straight into another player. The rest of the team glared at me with pure disgust, and Austin coldly demanded to know if this was all a big joke to me, telling me to start doing it properly. Keeping all of Selena's warnings about boys fresh in my mind, I firmly zipped my mouth shut and chose to completely ignore him. This only made him more frustrated. He stood in front of me with a serious face, asking what was up with my attitude and pointing out that I was bringing the whole team down. I still refused to say a word, completely locking up like a silent mime. Finally, feeling incredibly nervous, I rubbed my hands together and waved them around frantically, trying to gesture that I was sorry and that I did not mean to cause trouble. Austin looked thoroughly annoyed and snapped, asking if the cat had got my tongue. I desperately continued my silent routine, shaking my head vigorously, pointing toward the distance to represent my aunt, gesturing about talking, and then pointing directly at him to signal that talking to boys would literally cause me to die. Austin sighed in exasperation, telling me that faking dumb would not work with him. He sternly announced that I would have extra training starting tomorrow with absolutely no excuses. I kept my mouth shut while the other players just watched us, looking completely confused. I realized Beatrix was absolutely right. The guy was a total devil. After training, I was dragging my aching body home when I spotted a cute cat. I stopped to pet it, but it suddenly bolted away. I followed it right to the old back gate, a place completely off limits to students. I had never been there before, and my jaw dropped when I saw a breathtaking mural on the wall. The vibrant colors were completely mesmerizing, and I could not take my eyes off it. Suddenly, a stern voice broke the silence, asking what I was doing there. I jumped, startled, to find Austin standing behind me. Terrified, I began to stammer, but then I noticed the tools on the ground, the wet paint stains on his shirt, and the paintbrush in his hand. Forgetting my fear, I excitedly asked if he had painted this amazing piece. Austin looked incredibly nervous, avoiding my eyes before trying to regain his cold face. He snapped that of course he did not paint it and told me to stop prying, quickly hiding the brush behind his back. He was a terrible liar, and I could not help but smile, shocked that a tough jock could be so talented at art. Before I could say more, a guard shouted from a distance, ordering us not to move. Austin instantly grabbed my hand and began to run, pulling me along as the guard chased us. We ducked into a narrow alley between two buildings to hide. Out of breath, Austin pressed me firmly against the wall with his strong arm. My heart was pounding like crazy, and I could feel his chest heaving rapidly too. Our faces were only inches apart, and the warmth of his breath made me blush blush furiously. In my panic, I accidentally let out a small squeal. Austin immediately clamped his hand over my mouth, and we just stared deeply into each other's eyes. Thankfully, the guard walked past and the danger was gone. Austin removed his hand and turned to walk away. Without looking back, he coldly warned me not to breathe a single word about this. Strangely, his words did not hurt at all. Probably because I realized that beneath his tough exterior, he was hiding a secret just like me. Calling out to his back, I told him that I genuinely liked his painting and there was no need to hide it. Austin paused for a split second, half turning before walking away, but I am certain I caught a faint smile on his face. After that day, Austin started to behave quite differently, acting much more gently toward. He no longer yelled when I made mistakes, but patiently helped me through training instead. He stood close, softly instructing me on how to throw the ball so I could catch up with the team. Thanks to him, I actually managed a successful kick right into the rugby goal. I turned around to celebrate with him, but suddenly, another ball came hurtling toward my face. Austin instantly caught it with one hand while wrapping his other arm around my waist to steady me. We froze, then quickly turned our heads in opposite directions, blushing furiously at how awkward the moment had become. Later that week, the senior prom was coming up, and Beatrix insisted we go. As she stood by her mirror, I firmly told her no, but she clung to my hand like a total leech. I tried to shake her off, but she practically glued herself to me until I finally nodded. Looking annoyed, I agreed, making her clap with sparkling eyes. She happily handed me a gorgeous blue dress, begging me to wear it because it was a matching set, saying it would be lame if she wore hers alone. I pretended to be bothered, telling her I would only do it because she left me with no choice. Beatrix happily told me she loved me and walked out. The moment she left, my tough boy act vanished. I held the beautiful gown, dancing around the room with joy and sniffing the sweet fabric. It smelled amazing, and I desperately wanted to put it on. I hesitated, worrying about what Selena would do if she found out, but I quickly dismissed the thought. There was no way she would show up at a high school prom anyway, so I decided to just live in the moment. On the night of the prom, Beatrix and I linked arms and confidently stepped into the beautifully decorated ballroom. I felt amazing in the gorgeous blue dress, with my natural blue eyes finally showing and my mom's precious necklace resting gently against my collarbone. I held the necklace tightly, soaking in the sweet scent of the floral arrangements around the room. The moment we walked in, everyone's jaw dropped in absolute shock. And that was when I noticed Austin walking toward me, looking incredibly handsome in his sharp suit. He looked a bit surprised, admitting that I looked entirely different tonight in a very good way, before asking me if I wanted to dance. Before I could answer, Beatrix interrupted with a smug look, claiming it was strictly girls' time, and excitedly pointing out a corner filled with tasty food. Feeling a bit awkward for what I was about to do, I spoke rapidly, grabbing a random guy who was walking past and telling Beatrix that my friend here was absolutely starving, so she should show him where to grab a bite. Beatrix took the bait instantly, linking arms with the confused guy and pulling him away while rambling about cupcakes, biscuits, and brownies. Austin laughed, teasingly asking if this was what people called choosing boys over friends, and I just laughed along, replying that it was good for her anyway. Then Austin gently led me into a waltz. With the soft lighting and the elegant music playing, he looked exactly like a prince from a fairy tale. As we fell into step, letting the slow rhythm control our movement, a sudden warmth spread through me, and I felt my whole body tingle as if sparks were flying between us. It felt like everyone else in the room had completely faded away, leaving just the two of us. But suddenly, the romantic slow dance music changed into loud, vibrant trance music, causing the crowd around us to start jumping and dancing wildly while we just stood completely still. We looked into each other's eyes for a split second, sharing a quiet smile because we both knew exactly what the other was thinking. Holding hands tightly and keeping steady eye contact, we broke into a run, weaving right through the energetic crowd until we finally burst out of the crowded ballroom and into the cool night air outside. We ended up sitting in a beautiful gazebo, surrounded by the sweet scent of fresh flowers and the glow of twinkling light. Austin looked at me softly, admitting he never imagined a tomboy turning out like this. I nervously fidgeted with my dress and stammered, telling him that I actually was not a tomboy. He looked puzzled, asking what I meant. That was the moment I decided to pour my heart out. I told him everything about how I was obsessed with girly things, but had been forced to suppress it all my life. It felt incredibly liberating to finally let out a secret I had buried for so long, and Austin was a wonderful listener. He looked at me with deep sympathy, saying he was truly sorry. Then, he confessed that he also had to hide his true passion for art to help with his father's business, adding that my words the other day had really inspired him. Realizing that things had not been easy for him either made me feel even closer to him. Suddenly, he reached into his blazer pocket, pulled out a small sketchbook, and began to draw me. He smiled gently, whispering that he wished this moment could last forever. A light wind blew past us under the moonlight as he worked. His face became serious, beaming with pure passion. As his eyes shifted between his drawing and me, our gaze locked. My heart beat so hard I thought it would jump out of my chest, and my cheeks burned red. Internally, I was wishing for the exact same thing. Then he leaned closer, using the tip of his pencil to gently move a stray lock of hair from my face. I blushed even deeper and closed my eyes, fully expecting a kiss. Suddenly, a loud screech shattered the romance. Selena was screaming my name from the darkness. My eyes snapped open in pure panic. How on earth had she found out I was here? Before I knew it, we were back in the mansion hallway, and a furious Selena was aggressively dragging me along by the arm. She scolded me angrily, yelling that she could not believe I would be this reckless. Frustrated, I snapped back, telling her that she was not my mother, that not every boy was like my dad, and that she was completely wrong. Selena glared at me, sharply ordering me to mind my manners and get changed immediately. Right at that second, Mrs. Sanchez stepped into the hallway, interrupting our argument. She walked right up to me, squinting her eyes suspiciously. She asked if my eyes were actually blue, then placed her hands on her hip, leaning closer to look at the necklace my mother had given me. She looked completely startled. Selena quickly stepped directly between us to block her view, nervously lying that Mrs. Sanchez should not mind it, claiming she had just bought the necklace half price at a swap meet. Then she frantically signaled for me to run away. I ran out into the quiet garden and sat down, staring at the necklace with tears welling up in my eyes, wishing my mother were there, because she would understand how I felt. Suddenly, I felt a warm hand on my shoulder, which startled me. It was Beatrix, and she started talking incredibly fast. She asked if I was all right, mentioning she saw me leave with Austin, and even brought out a ruler to measure my hair, worriedly asking if he had cut it because it looked shorter. I just gave her a completely uninterested face and told her I was fine. Beatrix then noticed the necklace in my hands and touched it excitedly, remarking that she had a very similar necklace given to her by her dad. I looked at her in surprise, explaining that this was from my dad too, except I did not actually know who he was. Beatrix smiled innocently and joked that maybe my dad was her dad too. Her joke was not funny at all, but it suddenly made something click in my mind. Why did Selena lie so desperately to Miss Sanchez about this necklace? Determined to get answers, I went straight to find Selena in our room. When I confronted her, she looked shocked at first, then let out a heavy sigh and told me the most earth-shattering thing I had ever heard. Beatrix's dad, the former master of the house, was actually my dad too. He had seduced my mother back when she worked here as a maid. When Mrs. Sanchez discovered the affair, she kicked them both out, and the moment my dad realized my mother was pregnant with me, he abandoned her completely. Selena explained that she forced me into the boy disguise because she was terrified Miss Sanchez would recognize my mother's face in mine. The whole situation was seriously messed up, and I stood there in complete shock. Selena grabbed my shoulders, sternly warning me that I had to keep my identity a secret by all means, or we would be completely doomed. I just nodded slowly, realizing we had to be infinitely more careful from now on. For the whole week after, Mrs. Sanchez seemed to be in a strangely good mood, even inviting me to go shop. I was completely baffled when she led me into a lavish wedding dress studio. When I asked if there was a wedding coming up, her kindness vanished. She angrily snapped that it was my wedding, calling me filth and yelling that I had to pay for my mother's karma for stealing her husband. Stunned, I tried to bolt, but her guards immediately caught me. She forced me to a luxurious house, and when the door opened, Austin stood there, looking completely confused. I was in total shock, stammering his name before turning to Miss Sanchez to demand what she wanted. Inside the living room, an older man, Fisher, pushed a boy in a wheelchair named Ivan forward. Mrs. Sanchez warmly told Fisher that Ivan and I would make a perfect couple, offering it as a gift for a favor he did, before walking out. Austin exploded in anger, demanding to know what his dad was talking about. His father seriously explained that the marriage was settled to secure Ivan's future. Austin refused, yelling that he had already given up his art dream for business school, and he would not let his father control his brother's life too. Holding my hand tightly, he loudly declared his love for me and pulled me out of the house, leaving Mr. Fisher frozen in shock. We ran to a bridge where autumn leaves were falling. Austin held my hands, deeply apologizing for his dad's behavior and promising to protect me. I thanked him instead, telling him his bravery had given me the courage to fight for myself. I marched back into the mansion's living room, where Mrs. Sanchez flew into a rage. I stood my ground, calling her cruel and refusing to marry anyone to pay off her debt. Right then, Selena walked in, completely furious. She yelled at Mrs. Sanchez for hurting her child, and I had to physically hold her back from lunging. Suddenly, tears welled up in Miss Sanchez's eyes. She collapsed, sobbing about the pain of losing her husband and asking how we could expect her to just forget it. Feeling a wave of pity, I told her I was truly sorry for her past, but that it did not give her the right to dictate other people's lives. Selena sternly added that I owed her nothing. Startled by our words, Mrs. Sanchez fell silent. Selena and I quickly packed our things and walked out the front door, finally feeling completely free. After all that drama, it took us some time to get our lives back on track. Using the savings she had accumulated from years of hard work as a maid, Selena opened her own cozy bakery, finally taking full control of our lives. I was thrilled to finally return to my true princess style, wearing the colorful dresses I had missed so much. Yet, despite all the crazy changes, some things stayed exactly the same. Beatrix was still attached to my arm like a permanent fixture. She was absolutely over the moon, squealing that we were half-sisters. She blurted out that her mom felt incredibly guilty about everything that had happened, but had asked her to keep it a secret, before laughing and covering her mouth as everyone else laughed along. And what about Austin? He managed to work things out with his dad and was finally attending art school, pursuing his true passion. One sunny afternoon, we stood in a beautiful field of flowers as a gentle wind blew around us. Austin was sitting with his sketchbook, carefully drawing me. He smiled and asked me to tilt my head slightly to the right, remarking that the pink velvet dress I was wearing made me look just like a fairy prince. I pretended to be sulky, jokingly asking who dared to make a princess stand perfectly still like a statue for over an hour. Austin just giggled and told me to shush, stepping away from his canvas and walking toward me. He softly whispered that it was almost finished, begging for my pardon before leaning in and kissing me gently on the lip. The camera slowly panned up past us, capturing the endless, beautiful sky stretching out above.